Hey guys, real quick, I just wanted to mention the Patreon exclusive video that I uploaded yesterday. And I mentioned it in the pinned comment of yesterday's video, but hey, you know, maybe it's not yesterday anymore. I don't know when you're watching this. So if you like these videos, check this one out because it's an hour long, so if you fall asleep, it's a great sleep aid. And other than that, I think the analysis is very, very good. I didn't intend for it to spiral into an hour, but it did because there was so much to say. So yeah, you can check that out. You can buy it as a standalone thing, or you can just subscribe to the Patreon if you want, more of these, or if you just like me / want to help me out / help out my movie, because that's where all my money's going right now. So yeah, now on to the subject of today's video. We've got something a lot of even experienced players don't know about, and that is the order of activation. Now, for those who don't know, this extends to really basic stuff like sand and lefties, and a lot of people do know this, but just in case you don't, then if we take a random turn in this battle where... Okay, so look at this. Milotic switches into a Swampert that's not at full health, so both of them are getting lefties on this turn, right? So Milo takes sand, and then gets lefties, and then Swampert takes lefties. Now, you might say, well, of course, Milotic is faster than Swampert. I don't need the activation message to let me know, but that's not really the point here. The point is that you look at the activation message and you see that Milo is getting its lefties first. How do you think that gets decided? It's getting the lefties first and the sand, where applicable, because it is faster. And in fact, it's good to keep an eye on these kinds of things because, what if the Swampert got lefties first and you'd be like, what is up with that Swampert? What kind of super fast offensive lefties pert is this? It's very good to be aware. But a lot of people know this. So sometimes you get the feeling... This is actually how I was inspired to make this video, because while I was making the Patreon video, then I was talking about, sometimes players don't notice these kinds of things. I've had a lot of games... Wow, the wind just slammed my door to the balcony shut. Goodness gracious. I've had a lot of tournament games where I get the feeling that my opponent doesn't know that they're faster or slower based on sand and lefties. So just in case, there you go. But that's not really what this video is about. This video is about ability activation order, and it's very important to... and switch activation order, but that one I think is also more well known. Basically, the faster Pokemon switches first. So the reason I'm mentioning these things is because if you are in a tight battle, I mean, you can succeed without knowing mechanics like this. Pokemon is a game like that where sometimes you can succeed without knowing half of what's going on. You don't know the tier, you don't know the mechanics, sometimes don't even know what type the Pokemon are, like me when I play Gen 9. But so obviously it's good that you can hover over Pokemon on Showdown and you see, oh, Weavile is a dark and ice type, So now I look up the type chart. How do I hit that super effectively? So if you're new, but even if you're more experienced, you can succeed without having your music play. Glitch X City, are you... See, this is what happens when I go away from Zame's music for a video. I just wanted to mix it up a little bit. But I apologize. Yeesh to both you, the kind viewer, and to Zame. Anyway, it'll come back, I'm sure. But point is that when you are in a tight game, you have to look for every advantage you can get, and thus, it's a shame when you have information. You need as much information as possible. This is why I'm such a big fan of the damage calc. See, oh, if I can suss out that Pokemon's EV spread, that will be helpful. Then I can more accurately calc against them later, know exactly how much damage I'm going to be doing to them, things like that. Maybe the wind shut out the internet. But yeah, so damage calcing is good for stuff like that, but it's also good to see things like this in the log and say, oh, that is faster, that is slower. And a lot of time, even experienced players, like years of experience, like very successful tournament players, and this exact incident we're going to look at is what inspired me to make this video. So what happens here is that Updated Kanto is an excellent Aurus player. But what he doesn't notice here at the beginning is that Lando T leads off against his Weavile, right? Lando T's Intimidate goes off first, and then Weavile's Pressure activates. Okay, great. This means Lando T is faster. And what happens on the first turn is that Lando T is faster, obviously means it's Choice Scarf, and so it U-turns out of Weavile, and Weavile gets chunked for a huge percent and does basically nothing. So now it's ruined. and either you Ice Shard the Land OT if you want to wear it down, or more likely you switch. But the reason you never Icicle Crash there, because unless you think it's going to stay in and Scarf EQ, but it's never going to do that. So, yeah, and then he was asked after, like, hey, why didn't you see that the Land OT was Scarf? He's like, oh, I didn't know that's how the ability activation message. This is not me ripping on him. A lot of people don't know this for a long time. And again, he was an excellent player, but this is a mechanic that kind of slips through the cracks a lot of the time. So this ability activation stuff is crucial. It's especially crucial when regarding weather. Like, if you're playing something like Gen 3 Ubers and you've got a Groudon lead off against a Kyogre lead off, first, the faster Pokemon sends up their weather first, but then the second Pokemon's weather activates, and thus it's right there on the tip of my tongue, sorry. And thus you want to be the slower Pokemon in the situation because then you have your weather. So, and we see this in this battle, actually. In advance, you've got two Pokemon with the same weather. Now, okay, let's look at it. So, T-Tar and T-Tar. We notice that Blyarg sends in his T-Tar first. That doesn't have anything to do with speed. That's just based on who challenges. It works that way on Wi-Fi, I remember. Whoever challenges sends out their Pokemon first, and it would be unfair if it would be an advantage or disadvantage to, go to reveal something based on, who challenged, because there's no fair way to split that. Someone's got to challenge, someone's got to accept. So, who sends in their Pokemon first, that's arbitrary. What is not arbitrary is whose ability activates first. So you see that even though Blyarg sent in their T-Tar first, it's actually Conflict's T-Tar that sets up the sand. The opposing Tyranitar's Sandstream is what's kicking up the Sandstorm. Because you're going to have Sandstream activate once. You're not going to have, T-Tar Sandstream activates, and then the other T-Tar Sandstream also activates. That's not how it works. So, we see that the opposing T-Tar sets up Sandstream, meaning Conflict has the faster T-Tar. And this is already crucial information. Now, theoretically, it could be a speed tie. So if you're running a max speed T-Tar, and the opponent's T-Tar is what sets up the sand, you say, oh, well, that's also a max speed T-Tar. But T-Tar generally has a lot of different sets with lots of varying speed EVs, so that's not something you really bank on. But if you are running a max speed T-Tar, then there you go. Or even if you're running something like if you're running a mixed T-Tar with plus speed nature and max EVs, and the other T-Tar sets up the sand, then it's a speed tie. But if you're running adamant max speed, which is not a speed boosting nature, good lord, sorry. Then the other T-Tar sets it up first. You say, oh, well, that T-Tar's definitely running. The number of sets with which it can outrun me is limited, so it's probably going to be a mixed T-Tar. Or it's also a tie, but it's not going to be like a slow, bulky Pursuit Tar. So, see how much information you can glean just from... you haven't even made a move yet, and you're already getting all this information. It's really, really crucial. So, now, switch priority. If two Pokemon switch at the same time, then the faster one switches. I think in Gen 3, the Pokemon that switches out first is based on who challenged, but in every other generation, the first Pokemon to switch out is the faster one. And so on the simulator, it has been corrected corrected in quotation marks, but it has been edited to make it so that if the faster Pokemon will switch out first, because it would be random and forgive me for saying stupid, but yeah, stupid, if this kind of stuff... Because if Salamence comes in off a switch and intimidates, like, the Pokemon that switched in... Like, let me give you an example. So, if Starmie... you could say this is how it is on the card, so maybe, fealty to mechanics. But basically, if Starmie switches out of something into Salamence, and Salamence intimidates the incoming Pokemon that also switched in, then that is based on, if the opponent, like Arrow versus Starmie. Arrow switches first because it's faster, and Starmie switches to Salamence, and Salamence switches the Pokemon that Arrow switched to. Let's just say Snorlax, right? So if you didn't have this mechanic of faster Pokemon switches first, then the Starmie might randomly switch in, and it would intimidate the arrow, but the arrow is switching, so it doesn't matter. And that's actually a huge advantage for the Snorlax. And actually, I don't even remember if it's based on... It's either based on who challenged, or it's randomized, or something like that. But basically, in Gen 3, it's corrected on the simulator, corrected again in quotation marks, to be so that the faster Pokemon switches first. And then in Gen 4, on the cart, then it actually is that way. So you could say it was just an oversight or whatever that we now apply to the earlier gens. But in Gen 4, if your Heatran switches... if you have got a Heatran against an Infernape, and the Heatran switches first, that Heatran is Choice Scarf, because it's faster than the Infernape. So, you see that in action here. So, yes, here T-Tar taunts an incoming... Toxics an incoming Jirachi. And now the Jirachi switches out and goes to Swampert, and the T-Tar switches out at the same time. So what does this tell us? Jirachi is faster than the T-Tar because it switched first. It's consistent. And it's not, based on the whim of, who challenged. Otherwise, people would be like, oh, no, you challenge. No, you challenge. Because then it becomes, it's not even a matter of following the cart, but it becomes, a matter of competitive advantage. Like, if you've got physical attackers, you don't want Salamence to be able to intimidate more, then you are going to want to challenge or not challenge more. And then you go, oh, well, do they have physical attackers? It's a needless, nonsensical mess, and I think we're better off without it, considering all the corrections we make to the game anyway. But, yeah. Fixing Game Freak's errors. So, then we already went over this other example of Milotic and Swampert. So now, I want to mention a crucial exception to the rule. So, you'll see here, Mienshao has U-turned out of Amoonguss, and in comes a Gliscor. Gliscor, obviously has Poison Heal. It will heal that way, not with lefties. So, it eats the Giga Drain. And you see here, look at the log. My Amoonguss gets hit by Sandstorm and gets its recovery from Black Sludge first, and then Gliscor's Poison Heal goes off. And you go, how is that Amoonguss faster than Gliscor? And the answer is, it isn't. Poison Heal does not reveal speed. Because it doesn't matter if the Gliscor is actually fast. Obviously, the Gliscor is faster than the Amoonguss, but it does show that it is... it doesn't show anything. Gliscor is faster because Gliscor is faster, but, you see this a lot in, DPP with, Breloom. Oh, is that Breloom faster than Skarmory? And the answer is, you don't know. It has nothing to do with leftovers or, leftovers activation. So, keep in mind, Poison Heal does not apply to this. And given how, popular Poison Heal Gliscor is in so many generations, it is very, very crucial to know. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I know it's a short video, but I think it's very crucial to know, and I hope you were entertained by it. Check out the Patreon video, because it's really good. If you think this one was too short, you can find something a lot longer over there. And either way, I'm continuing the daily upload streaks. I was talking to Joey. He was like, dude, I used to upload 3 videos a day. Do 2 if you want. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'm daily, and if occasionally it spills into 2, that's great. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.